I'm Elizabeth and I'm here to talk about books. Today I'm going to be doing a book tag because to my great surprise I was actually tagged in something, and that something is the art movement book tag that was created by the lovely Miriam over at Between Lines and Life, and she's also the one who tagged me in this. So thank you so much for doing that, Miriam, and also thank you for the very nice words you said about me and my channel. Really appreciate that. I will of course leave links to her original video down below. So I promised myself I'd try to make this short and sweet, unlike my previous video, so let's get straight to the prompts. So I have my trusty notebook with the questions written down, and it's time to just get started. Prompt number 1 is Baroque. Name an extravagant book character or a character who lives an extravagant life. For this, I'm going to use a character I've used for a tag before, and that is Tehol Benedict from the Malice and Books of the Fallen. Tehol Benedict first appears in the 5th book in the series called Midnight Tides, and he quickly became probably my favorite literary character of all time. He used to be the wealthiest man in the realm, but when we meet him, he is piss poor. He's living on a rooftop wearing nothing but a blanket, yet he still manages to be the most extravagant man you will ever meet. In fact, I think if you're at all into fantasy, I would recommend reading this book simply to get to know Tehol Benedict and his manservant, who has fallen from grace with him. And you don't even need to read book 1 to 4 to enjoy the 5th book, because this is just a complete departure from the first 4 books. But yeah, Tehol Benedict, an extravagant man. Prompt number 2 is Impressionism, a book that left a lasting impression on you. Tell us why. For this I've gone with impact, and I've chosen Empires of the World by Nicholas Osler. I have been interested in languages for as long as I can remember, but for the longest time that interest manifested itself as wanting to learn all of the languages. And this book changed that, because this book introduced me to historical linguistics, and it blew my mind simply because there were so many things in here that I didn't know of, and this book led me to seek out other books like it, and then that led me to seek out books on other topics within the broader field of linguistics, which eventually led me to pursue a bachelor degree in linguistics and what I can only assume will be a lifelong interest in all things linguistics. So yes, definitely made a big impression on me, this one. Prompt number 3 is Expressionism. A book with a very personal and specific, possibly unique outlook on the world. And for this I've gone with Ancillary Justice by Ann Leckie. Probably, maybe my favorite sci-fi book of all time. The reason I went for this is that in here we meet a narrator with what I would say is a unique point of view. At least it's one I've never read in any other book, either before or since reading this. We have the narrator being an AI who is simultaneously a big ship, but also controlling 4,000 human bodies called ancillaries. The point is that you have a narrator that is simultaneously at 4,001 places at once, and that was mind-boggling to read at first, but when I got into it, I really enjoyed this. Prompt number 4 is Surrealism, a book that puts a spin on the reality of our living, or a sci-fi book that you would recommend. For this, I've chosen a sci-fi book, and that's The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Le Guin is of course a very famous author within both science fiction and fantasy. Words lost on me there. And I've seen her talked about a lot on BookTube, but I've hardly ever seen this book talked about, which surprises me because this is my favorite of her books. This is political sci-fi where we are on a planet, or actually we're on the planet's moon, because 30 years ago the rebels of the home planet was given the moon to create the society they wanted. And in the 30 years since this, there has been no contact between the moon and the main planet. So we have this utopian society on the moon. You got a very capitalist society on the home planet. And within this book, one scientist from the moon will get to visit the home planet for the first time, for the first contact between the two in 30 years. Also in this book there's a strong linguistic theme going on, which is probably part of the reason why I love it so much. But yeah, I really like this, and again I really like sci-fi books that explores ideas more than deal with plot, I guess. The fifth prompt is Pointillism, a book where different narratives makes a bigger picture. For this I've chosen a Norwegian book, or rather books, because this is a trilogy. It's written by Carl Frode Tiller and it's called Innsirkling in Norwegian, or Encircling in English translation. In this book, the premise is that a man called David is in hospital, and there's been put an ad in the newspaper saying that he has amnesia, and anyone who has known him throughout his life are asked to write him letters telling about their time together to jog his memory. So this book, or this series, consists of 8 people writing him letters, and we get to see their letters and we get to see what is happening in their lives at the time they are writing the letters. And then the 9th and final chapter, we meet David himself. I really like this series because of the way that all these separate narratives make a mosaic that lets us know David from so many different angles. It seems like we are hearing about 8 different people, not one person. And it's interesting to see how we play different roles around different people, but also how different people will see us in different way because they are themselves are different. I also really like how Tiller manages to portray these really neurotic, socially awkward, overthinking people that always takes things just one step too far. That makes them really interesting to read about. And I also appreciate that in the 3rd and final book in the trilogy, the final chapter or the final third of the book, we finally get to hear David's own perspective on things, which is kind of anticlimactic, I'll say, because he's built up to be this superhuman who has all these different sides, when in fact he also is just a human being. Prompt 6 is Pop Art, a book that criticizes consumerism in some way or makes you look critically at current times. I really had a hard time picking a book for this, but in the end I have gone with Crudo by Olivia Lang, though I have a hard time explaining why I chose this. This is a book about a woman getting married and just the weeks leading up to her marriage, where nothing much happens. But what we get and why I chose this is because she has this constant flow of news coming into her life through Twitter and other social media, and that depiction of that is telling a lot about the time we're living in at the moment, and I would definitely say it's a critical theme going on in this. The 7th prompt is Dadaism, a weird book, or a book that puts a spin on the novel format. I've read a lot of books who would fit into the latter category here, but I decided to go with a weird book, and for me none has been weirder than Revolvo by Steven Erikson. I really don't have the vocabulary to describe this book. I think it's weird. It's got some kind of secret art society who are nepotistic and wants all artists to be able to live on purses and awards and don't have any audience, so that's part of it. Then there's a Neanderthal man born by genetic mishap into our time, walking around the city killing people. Then there's this pet octopus who escapes his prison by making a slingshot out of stolen condoms and catapults himself over to the apartment across the street where he rides out on a dog. I don't know, I'm not really recommending this book, but it definitely fits the bill of being weird. The eighth and final prompt is performance art, a book that would make a great movie or your favorite play. I'm going to cheat a bit on this question and go with a book I know made a great play, and it's another Norwegian one. It's called Fugletribunalet, or The Bird Tribunal, because this is also translated into English, by Agnes Ravatn. This is a book, it's very claustrophobic story about a man and a woman being in an isolated house and how their relationships develops and some secrets from the past are revealed. And I've also seen this as a play which was brilliant. It was probably made an even stronger impression on me. It's on this really stripped down stage where the only props were like 3 wooden logs and a pair of Wellingtons and a boat. And it was just so powerful seeing these two people destroy each other on stage. There are 2 final bonus questions here. The first is a fiction book that discusses or features art in some way. And for me, one of my favorite books of all time is What I Loved by Sirius Tvedt, where the art scene in New York in the 1980s is prominent. So that's going to be my pick for that question. The second bonus question proves that this was probably not the most apt tag for me at all, and that's who's your favorite artist or what's your favorite painting? Because I have to admit I'm fairly clueless when it comes to art, so I don't really have a favorite. However, I do have a favorite illustrator, and it's another Norwegian, and she's called Elisa Aisato. And in fact, this here picture is by her. It's not my favorite illustration by her, but this is one that actually came with a magazine I bought, so I framed it and put it on the wall. She illustrates her own children's books and also other people's books and newspaper articles, and her works have this great combination of being whimsical and colorful, but also very touching and fragile and moving. I don't know what else to describe it. I will link her webpage down below so you can go look at more of her illustrations. I guess that leaves only one thing, and that's to tag someone, which I have to admit I'm a bit apprehensive about because I don't know anyone on BookTube, or rather nobody on BookTube knows me. Still, I want to tag Silja just because she's my friend, even though she is already tagged by Miriam. I also want to tag Agnes from Beyond the Epilogue because she was the first person who ever tagged me in anything, and I saw her making a video a few days ago. So I want to tag you if you want to do this. Then, because Miriam really wants this to spread, I thought maybe I could try to spread it to the Norwegian book blogs as well. So I tag Elida and Ann-Helene to do this on your blogs if you want to. And that was all for me. No, that was all from me for today. Hard with all these foreign words. I'll see you around next time. Bye bye.